Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Ostrander. I am a teacher-turned-homeschool mom. This is Raising A to Z, a place where we talk all things homeschooling. And today I'm going to talk about how I let my kids decide what we learn in our homeschool. So some people are a little shocked when they find out how much my kids have in terms of say when it comes to deciding what we do in our homeschooling. 90% of what we learn in a year comes straight from them. And I think a lot of parents are shocked by this. A, because we live in a society where school dictates what you need to learn and when you need to learn, and kids get no say in what they learn, when or where or how. So I think when you come to a place like homeschooling and you kind of have a little bit of an unschooling vibe going on, it shocks people. It shocks people that my kids are kind of in charge of what they get to learn in a year. And it's kind of the best thing ever, actually. There's a lot of evidence out there that suggests from science and psychology that when people are invested in what they're learning in, when they have decided that it's something that they enjoy, that they have a reason for learning it, and it's something that they're interested in, they go much deeper into the topic. They go much broader into a topic. And so basically they learn more and push themselves more because their interest and their passion and their excitement about a topic pushes that learning forward. And they retain a lot of that learning, a lot more than if they just learned it because the teacher said they had to. So letting your kids have a say in what you're doing in your homeschooling can be a great key, especially if you're dealing with kids who have a little bit of opposition, who struggle with wanting to do school. It's giving them some ownership over their learning and letting them be part of the decision-making process when it comes to what are you learning and how are you going to learn it. So here are some ways that I let my kids make decisions when it comes to what we're going to learn about in our homeschooling and how I help them make those decisions, especially since they are very young. So what do? So first off, I ask my kids. I think that's the first and easiest thing is just ask them, what do you want to learn? What do you want to learn about? I do have a tip about this because if you ask a 5-year-old what you want to learn next year, they are going to literally stand up, look around the room, and just start naming things they see. I know this because it's happened. Especially if your kids are young, if they're a little older, they might have some more ideas and be a little bit more abstract in their thinking, like able to think of things that are not directly in front of them. Usually I give my kids 1 to 2 weeks heads up. I said, hey, in 2 weeks or in a week, I'm going to start thinking about what we're doing next year. Can you think about a couple of ideas that you might want to study next year? And kind of remind them that throughout the next week or two, and then have a nice sit down conversation individually with each of them. And then I ask them, so what do you want to learn about next year? And I'm not going to lie, the answers are a little bit shocking sometimes. Like surprisingly good. Alexi came up with one year that she wanted to learn about famous women in history. If that is not a fantastic social studies topic, I don't know what is. And so we spend an entire month just reading biographies and graphing the lives of women on a timeline for an entire month, and like graphing them based on like what type of impact they had. So were they a political figure? Were they an artist? Were they a scientist or a mathematician? Like went through a whole thing. It was probably one of my favorite units that we've ever done. And Alexi came up with that at 6 years old. So like, don't limit them. They have some really good ideas. And if they come up with it themselves, chances are they're interested in it and they're going to go and explore it and be more interested in learning about it later on, right? Like it's not going to become well, we learned about space because we had to learn about space. We learned about space because I was so excited about it and here's all the things I learned about it. That is like, you're hooking them in because it's what they want to learn about, right? So first, always ask them. Give them some time, but always ask them because you never know what they're going to come up with. They've come up with some pretty great topics. The second thing you can do is keep a running list of ideas. I talked last week when I was talking about record keeping and lists that I keep, that I have a list on my phone, just in my like notes section of my phone, that is just different topics or ideas or novel studies or things that I've seen other people do on Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. And I just keep them in my phone. Keep a little list. And if your kids don't come up with enough ideas or they just don't have any ideas, you can kind of like read through the list and see if anything sparks something. It's a great way to kind of give you like a jumping off point. And, oftentimes I find my kids are really good at coming up with like 2 to 3 really solid ideas each, especially when it comes to like their unit study topics. They're really great at that. But if they both come up with 3 unit studies, that's only 6. And I'm looking for kind of like 8 to 10 a year, give or take, depending on the year. And so like I might need more. So this is kind of a way to like fill in the blanks with them of like other topics, maybe things they haven't thought about. It's a great idea. It's like kind of like a digital way of like strewing different ideas and seeing what they kind of get interested in. And so, yeah, keeping a list on your phone can be a great way to like help them make decisions and help them have some choice when it comes to what they're going to learn next year. So just having a list with, things you've seen on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok. Sometimes if they've asked me a lot of questions about a topic, I put that topic in there too. Because sometimes they just forget things that they were interested in because they just haven't seen it. So maybe like, for example, my kids never asked me about plants. Never asked me about plants. Come spring, they asked me like a million questions about plants. You're going to bet that we're doing some plant unit stuff. You know what I mean? Having that on my phone makes it so much easier to kind of like pull those ideas out later on. For example, the plant thing. My kids love plants. They talk about plants constantly. And I have noticed that over the last like 4 years, we've learned about plants 2 or 3 times. We've done like gardening, just like in general, like a kindergarten theme. We've done like basic plants. And then this year we're doing like plants and seeds, a little bit more intensive. So that's 3 out of 4 years we've done plants. And then when I asked them, they wanted to do plants again. So rather than doing a 4th year in 5 years on plants, I kind of like steer them and start suggesting topics that were adjacent. And so instead of learning about plants, I suggested maybe mushrooms and fungus. Well, that was a hit. So they're very excited about that because it's similar. It's branching off of what they already know and feel comfortable about learning. And it's in the kind of similar realm, but it's something different, right? So using what they already know as like a stepping stone to learn about something else. And so sometimes picking an adjacent topic is a really great way to kind of spread a little bit of learning out, especially if they kind of get really fixated on or really interested in one specific thing. It's a great way to kind of like spread things out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Another thing that I do with my kids is I ask for their input when it comes to picking curriculum. When kids are doing work, it's best that they enjoy what they're doing and that they're kind of happy working with the program that they're working with. And if there's a program that they are totally miserable with, and it's not just that they hate this subject, like that's a different thing. But if they're just like, oh, this is too many questions, or it's really boring, or sometimes it's the curriculum. It's just that it's not something they're interested in terms of like, it just doesn't appeal to their learning style. So I ask for their input. Do you like the curriculum you're doing? Yes. Do you want to keep doing it, or do you want to look at something else? No, I want to keep doing it. Or yeah, I really like to try something maybe a little bit different. I find this aspect a little bit irritating or boring or whatever. Awesome. Getting their input helps you make those decisions. Another thing that I let them do is have some choice in what they're picking. So for example, I was looking for a novel study for next year. I had like 5 or 6 different novel studies that were like age appropriate, were going to be great options for them. And so I went in and I asked them, here are the 5 different books that I was thinking about for next year. I'm going to read off the description. And then if you like it, say yes. If you don't, we'll put it aside. We'll take it out of the running. And at the end, we'll see which books we want to pick from. And we went through, I think it was 3, we ended up with about 3 books that they were interested in. I read them again, and we ended up picking out of those books one for a novel study next year. Perfect. They picked a book that they were interested in, and chances are they're going to be interested in doing the work because they're interested in the book, right? So they've had some ownership in making the decision as to what novel study we're doing. So it's not just me saying, hey, this is what we're reading. It's, here are some options. Which one of these options would you like? So maybe they didn't have full control and say, but they had some control over a few different options. People are concerned when I'm talking about letting kids pick and making this many choices in their homeschooling. What if they just don't want to do something? Here's the thing. I have my expectations of what needs to get done. So I have an expectation we are going to do math. We are going to do language, reading, writing, phonics, and grammar kind of all in that too. So we're going to do those things. We're going to do some science. We're going to do some social studies. We're going to do those things. You have to do those things. You just get to have a little bit of say and freedom in what we're going to do. And so that is how we run things. It's not that it is completely decided with kids and they're like, we don't want to do math. Like I do believe that we need to learn the basics. We need to learn foundations. And that means that you do have to sometimes do things that you don't love or that you don't want to do, because that's just life. And building those foundations do take time and effort and practice. And so we're going to do that. But I do let my kids have some input in to how that happens. So for example, I was looking at changing math curriculums this year, and Alexi was like, Mom, I'd really like the one we're doing. I know it's a little tricky for me now, but I really like it. I like how colorful it is. I like how many questions are on a page. It's not too much for me. I like the way that the questions are laid out. I like how there's always different kinds of questions. I like what I'm doing. I'm not going to argue with that. As long as she's meeting my expectations of doing math, I'm not going to argue which program she uses. If she's happy with the one she's with, then that's what we stuck with. And it's worked out really well. So giving them some freedom doesn't mean that they have complete control over everything. They still have things and responsibilities they have to do, but it does make those much easier and much more interesting for them when they have that kind of ability to make those choices. And when it comes to like how we tackle subjects and stuff, I pick things and choose to do activities based on what my kids like. What would interest them? When I'm making a unit study for my kids, I'm picking activities and hands-on experiments and projects that I think they would like based off of what kind of kids they are. You know what I mean? I'm not picking an assignment just because we're going to write a 3-page paper just because that's what everyone else is doing. No, like, let's find a way to make this interesting. Alexi, do you want to make a movie about this? Awesome. Do you want to make like a diorama shoebox thing? Sure, let's do that. You want to wrap a mummy and like go through how to like make a sarcophagus? Awesome, let's do that. Picking things that are interesting for them and that are going to work with them. Like, there's no point in doing boring papers just for the sake of doing boring papers. You know what I mean? And so that's what I've been doing a lot with my kids. I find it really, really helps. And because I'm following their interests, sometimes things get a little off balance. For example, one year, maybe we do a lot more science than we do social studies. I try to balance it out so it's about 50-50, but like maybe one year it's like 75-25 in terms of like topics. But because I'm following them, I know in the grand scheme of things, they're getting enough science, they're getting enough social studies, they're reading books and studying books they are excited and enjoy. They're learning math. They're doing the math that they are happy and comfortable with in a style that works for them. And they feel like they were listened to. They feel like they were a part of the decision-making process and that they have a certain level of ownership over what we're studying in our homeschool. It wasn't just mom dictating what needs to get done. It was, learning by committee, and they got to be part of that committee and part of those decisions. And I think that really creates a great sense of autonomy for them. And it also creates a really unique, customized education for them as well. So that's what I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys like this video and other videos like it, make sure you subscribe, click the bell to get notifications so that you know when the new videos come out. And then if you want to see how all of my planning and how all that's going to work, because that's coming next week, definitely want to make sure you're following on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as I talk about all of our curriculum choices and topics and all that. That's what we're going to do for the next couple of weeks. So thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next week.